Hello everyone, my name is Paul Nunno. I'm a student working at the AI Center, and I'm here with Professor Scott Spurlock, Associate Professor of Computer Science. Could you kindly give us a quick introduction?
Sure, yeah, so I'm Scott Spurlock. I'm an associate professor, been teaching at Elon for about 10 years. I teach all the way from Computer Science 1 and 2 to upper level electives, computer vision, data mining, machine learning, which are more kind of AI focused sorts of courses.
Awesome. Now, in your role, how frequently do you use AI and for what primary purposes?
I guess I think of AI as more a thing I create than a thing I use. So a lot of my research and some of my classes are involved in particularly machine learning and computer vision, which is sort of subdisciplines of AI. I use AI a little bit. I mostly am not using ChatGPT or large language models to do work-related stuff. I try them out every now and then. I feel sort of a professional curiosity for how they work, and I want to understand them, but I'm almost always disappointed. So, I'll say, oh, make me an assignment to do this, make me a test with these kinds of questions. And mostly it's not what I want. So then I end up spending more time to have generated this thing and then go through and fix it up, and it would have been faster just to make it myself. So it is getting better and better at code, and I'll use it maybe to generate some code and then go through and fix it up. But I'm definitely not an AI power user. It usually disappoints me a little bit.
In your experience, what are the most significant benefits and limitations of using AI in your work?
I guess the benefits are speed and ease of use, right? And so I think that's why I go back and try from time to time to automate parts of the teaching, kind of the job, and I'm never satisfied with it. It is helpful for generating code, for boilerplate kinds of code. So especially if I want to make a quick data visualization or something, I can say, give me this, it'll give me the matplotlib or whatever, it'll give me the 20 lines, and then I can change it a little bit. For research code, it's not as helpful. So the kinds of things I'm trying to do are usually not in its training set. So it can get me going on syntax, but it's maybe not as helpful for the bigger ideas.
Can you go more in depth on the differences between usage? I know you're talking more about like that boiler code and that research code.
Yeah, if it's something that you could Google and immediately find a Stack Overflow and somebody would say, here is the 10 lines of code to do this thing, it's perfect for that. It's just a little quicker than going to Stack Overflow. There it is, copy paste it. If it's something that people maybe haven't done before, then I find that it's not very good. So it will give you code that looks authoritative, and then you spend a while kind of saying, oh, but that doesn't make sense, it doesn't quite work, and then you should have just written it yourself.
It likes to wander sometimes. What are some gaps in your AI knowledge that you've identified, and what resources could us at the AI Center really provide to help bridge that gap?
So I'm pretty solid on AI developments up through about 5 years ago, right? Because it's my research area. But more recently, I haven't kept up as much. So some of the latest, greatest, I'm vaguely aware of RAG, retrieval, augmented generation and things, but I don't use them in my day-to-day. So I'd like to experiment a little bit more with some of the latest, like using large language models in more specific kind of training yourself kind of ways. Mm-hmm. I have a powerful workstation with a nice GPU, so I could do some of this. But when I think about experimenting with it, it's gonna take me more than an hour. Right? I'm gonna have to read about it, come up to speed, download some stuff, so I never quite have time to do it. So if there was kind of a quick, dirty, what's the latest, greatest LLMs for fairly technical audience, I'd be excited about it.
I know that something that I've been looking at, a lot of roles, I know it's a whole thing now of going over, it's like entry-level positions, or like those more grunt work, more data aspect positions are, people have a big fear of those are gonna get more and more get taken away and shipped at over time.
Yep.
Obviously, computer science is from what I've seen, is in that sort of bucket.
Yeah.
Because of, again, we were talking about like that like coding aspect. Do you have a specific take on that you find insightful?
In terms of where a job's going,
yes.
Or whatever. So my perspective is the focus is going to shift a little. I think in the past, if you majored in computer science, wherever you were, ranked in your class or whatever, you were going to have a job. Something in IT somewhere to whatever it would be. Nowadays, the value that you can provide if you're kind of at the lower end of, I don't really understand how things work, but I could Stack Overflow it and kind of get there. Increasingly, there's no value there because ChatGPT will do that. But I think there's a lot of value in being able to think computationally about how computers solve problems and be the interface that translates human requirements, business requirements into actual code. And I think that's not as easy as people think. So you read all the hype about LLMs, there'll be no more software developers. I think there will still always be software developers who can think in a certain way, talk to humans, translate requirements, talk to machines, translate back. It's just the shift will be more of the thinking and this problem solving and not the grunt work of writing the boilerplate code.
So you're saying it's more of an emphasis on those like soft skills, not the hard skills.
The soft skills are important, and I have a background in consulting, so I'm a big believer in knowing how to talk to people and translate, but also the thinking part, the critical thinking of you, the customer, said you wanted A, B, C, and D, but I know that D is not the thing you should be wanting, and we can talk more about that. And C actually has already been implemented similar but different. What if we did it that way? So it's kind of the extra stuff you bring in are those soft skills, maybe, but also the technical piece of how could we make this real.
How has AI changed the way you've approached learning, teaching, or leadership decisions?
AI has really approached how I grade things because it used to be, so my teaching philosophy when I started was, I want to know what you can do. So here's a problem, show me the solution to this problem. And so all tests would be keyboard, writing code, projects, writing code, because writing the code was a good way to show that you understood it and could think through it. And now that's no longer the best way to show that, because the kind of code that you would put in an assignment that's appropriate for a student to learn from the basics is the kind of code that large language models are good at. That's what it's trained on. So I've switched my assessment philosophy to interviews more often. So you do a project, awesome, but you come in and sit in this chair and we talk about it. We look at the code together, we see if we could extend it somehow, we see if you understand how it works, but also could you do this other thing with it that's beyond what you're gonna do with a large language model. That makes it more authentic, I think, and it motivates students to really understand what they're doing as opposed to just outsource their thinking. And then exams are all pencil and paper now, which I think has been surprisingly powerful because it moves the focus off, can you memorize syntax, and more, do you understand the ideas, which is the more important thing to know anyway. And I think the more you interact with LLMs, knowing the ideas becomes more important. So power users can get way more out of an LLM than novice users. And this just moves us in that direction.
What guidance would you give students or professionals who are beginning to use AI responsibly and effectively?
As in how to make sure that you're responsible and
effective.
effective?
How to make sure that it's used effectively.
I think you need a feedback loop where you ask yourself questions. Do I really understand this? Am I getting out of this what I want to get out of this? How could I extend this thing and do this other new thing to it? And you can have that conversation with the AI, right? You can say, tell me more about this. Why does this line of code do this? What other problems could I solve with this? Give me a little quiz about this, multiple choice, whatever. I think when you outsource your thinking, it becomes one transaction. Tell me how to do this. Awesome, I copy paste it and I'm done. And now you haven't really learned anything.
Which AI tools for you have had the greatest impact on your work and why?
When I play with AI in terms of large language models, I'm probably just going to ChatGPT. What I hear is that right now Claude Code is the way to go. I haven't played with Claude Code personally. I have a research student right now who is mostly doing their coding in Claude. And that's been interesting to work as a research advisor. And so then we agreed by next week, you're gonna accomplish A, B, and C, and you're going to use AI to do it. So I'm doing my research project sort of meta on their research project, but so then they can come back and say, I did it, and I got this stuff, and I don't quite know how this part works, and it doesn't seem like it's right. And then we can dig in and say, oh, this is why Claude said this, and this is, but Claude seems very effective. It can do a lot of good things, but it has to be prompted effectively. In terms of me using AI, that's about it. I don't mostly use AI. I think I mentioned at the top of the Google search results, if I just want syntax, that's very helpful. I turn off AI in my development environments. I use Google Colab. I don't want it to autocomplete 40 lines for me. I want to think about it. I write a lot of AI in terms of machine learning, but I'm not a power user of it.
And how would you say, it's just a side question from what you were just stating, when it comes to defining that line? I know, I know we talked about that in the last question, responsibly and effectively. How do you think that we at the AI Center can help develop that line in terms of like academia and an academic series?
That's hard because I think a lot of it is intrinsic motivation. So, like I mentor our competitive programming team, and so people show up and we solve crazy hard problems without AI. And there's not for a grade, it's not policed. So why would anyone do this? It's just because you kind of want to learn some stuff and see how it works and see if you can solve the problem, and that's fun for you. Most students don't do that. So I think the real secret to using AI responsibly is to have the intrinsic motivation that you just really want to understand how things work. And if you have that, awesome. If you don't, it's harder to develop. And I think maybe having projects that you come up with yourself where you really care about the outcome helps with some of that intrinsic motivation. Maybe the fear of needing to get a job and get through an interview and really understand something, I think that helps with motivation a little bit. But I think every individual has to find it for themselves. So if you're just trying to get the degree and get out, maybe it's hard to come up with the motivation to learn stuff.
Could you give an example of a type of problem that you and your group would be doing, and like you'd try to solve?
So in terms of like research problems, so like I have a student now who's working on a fitness application where you could set up your phone to video you doing squats or deadlifts or something, and then give you feedback about, whoa, make sure you keep your back flat there, or you need to go down a little bit lower, or watch your toes, your heels are coming up, something like this, which is interesting. So he's a trainer, right? So it's important to his work. He's been hurt before, so he's motivated by like trying to help people not get hurt and have good form. Maybe he's motivated by making tons of money on this app and the answer. So it's an interesting project. It could help people. It could make money, right? And then that helps you really think about how it works and understand it. Having the domain knowledge as a trainer of what goes into making decisions about form, then you have the curiosity for, why did the AI say this? How can I figure this out? I think that's really helpful, having that curiosity about what you're working with.
Obviously, in today's age of a lot of people, mainly again businesses, corporations, academia, really acknowledging AI, yes, but more importantly trying to incentivize and integrate it. Most importantly, I know you've been saying throughout this interview of questioning the AI output, and how do you think we as students could continue to build that muscle of sort of questioning and sort of debating with the response that ChatGPT or a Claude would give us?
That's a good question, and if I knew that, I would just have all students do it, right? But I think it's the same habit of thought that you want to get out of your college education, is questioning everything, right? How do we know what we know? How can we prove it? Whether that's an English paper you're writing and you have references into the text, or it's code that you're writing and you want to prove that the code works, or it's a conversation where somebody claims something and you want to, is that true, right? I think it's the same thing with AI, and so maybe it's a bigger idea, like how can we be like grown-up citizens of the world? We got to question things. Am I right about this? I don't know. I'm making it up right now. So you should probably question it and go see if this bears. Is there any psychology research that this is true? Right? I don't know. But I feel like it's bigger than AI. It's our attempt to exist in the world in a thoughtful way.
I think that's all we have for you. Thank you so much, Professor Spurlock.
Thank you
so much, Professor.
Thank you.